Today's sermon is something I read in an article in the UUA Pacific Western Region newsletter. It was written by Reverend Sarah Shore, and that's from September 2023. The Andy Griffith Show ran for 8 seasons on TV from October 3rd, 1960 until September 16th, 1968. That was 249 episodes. 159 episodes in black and white, and 90 in color. You may remember when the world was black and white. During its run, the show never dropped out of the top 10 in the rankings. And that's pretty amazing considering there were over 100 TV shows broadcasting during that time period. It's an impressive feat. And just before I get into this detail too much, I'd like to get a feeling for who's here today. Who remembers black and white TV? Okay. Who remembers watching the Andy Griffith Show? Who here is older than Google? Who remembers the dinosaurs? For those of you in the online congregation or here that don't know what I'm talking about, a little explanation is needed. So the show was about life and situations found in the small town of Mayberry, North Carolina. It was a fictional town. And Mayberry was charming, idealistic, homespun, and nostalgically comforting. Sheriff Andy Taylor was a widower, and he had a young son named Opie. They lived with Andy's Aunt Bee. And Aunt Bee was a combination housekeeper and foster mother for Opie. Andy's deputy was his cousin, Barney Fife, the most inept, hypertensive deputy sheriff ever seen on TV. The tone of the show was very gentle, and giving Andy the opportunity to state and practice his understanding and philosophy of life. Now, some examples of the quaintness of Mayberry, characters particularly, Sheriff Andy Taylor did not wear a gun. His deputy did wear a gun, but didn't have any bullets. Barney Fife was so nervous and hyper-strung and bumbling that he was only allowed to carry one bullet in his shirt pocket buttoned down. Mayberry had a town drunk, Otis Campbell, who would get drunk on weekends, come in, lock himself in the cell, and sleep it off. Other charming characters, Floyd the barber, Ernest T. Bass, a rowdy hillbilly who always behaved in immature, childish ways. Helen Crump, Sheriff Taylor's longtime girlfriend, who was the very nice, kind, charming school marm. Gomer Pyle, and later Goober Pyle, kindly mechanics who were one can short of a six-pack. Mayberry was a depiction of an undaunted small American town, small American lives. It still evokes a love for simpler times. Going fishing with your dad, going for a drive down a country road, sitting on your front porch and saying hi and talking to the neighbors as they walk by. Knowing that decent people exist, whether they're pumping gas, delivering groceries, baking pies, playing baseball, serving hot meals, or just letting you pass through town. Believing all of this illuminated and affirmed hope for the wider world. But even when the program aired, things in America were not universally charming, nor calm. Mayberry was a misremembered past, a yearning for the good old days that just weren't. Mayberry was a white town, had no black residents. In season 2, there was one glimpse of a black woman clapping at a parade. Only one episode had a black person in a speaking role. That was season 7 of the 8 seasons. In 8 years, there were only 2 Asian Americans appearing in the series. And that was when Aunt Bee started a Chinese restaurant. And those 2 were the cooks. The speaking Asians and the black appearance of a black speaking person were only 1 month apart in year 7. Kathleen McElroe writes it this way: but American culture has always been good at compartmentalizing. For example, on March 7th, 1965, the TV networks interrupted their programming to show live shots of Sheriff Jim Clark beating civil rights protesters in Selma, Alabama. The next evening, TV viewers watch Sheriff Andy Taylor deal gently with an attractive house guest. There never was a Mayberry. I want to share with you a conversation I had with a minister I worked with in Santa Cruz. He was in his 30s, and he and I, probably half a dozen times, I was on his radio program, and we talk about mental health issues and the challenge of getting through life undaunted by the demons that some of us possess. And before the show, we were talking, and I was saying how I didn't like the 60s and didn't like the 70s. And he's like, I thought it was all peace and love. And I had to explain to him, kind of like, that's what the music said? But in 1969, the Cuyahoga River outside of Cleveland was so polluted it caught fire. There were deadly race riots. In Detroit, Los Angeles, and Newark, over 20,000 people were arrested and almost 500 people died in those race riots. During the 8 years of the Andy Griffith Show, 37,000 U.S. soldiers died in Vietnam, mostly men in their 20s. No, the 60s were not a time of peace and love. Oh, okay, so if Mayberry is this idealized, euphemistic town that did not reflect the alarming condition of the country at that time, why was it so popular? And more correctly, why is it still so popular? Global economic entertainment analysis report that American demands for the Andy Griffith Show are 10 times higher than any other request for another TV series. That's as of January of 2024. It's still popular. So maybe Mayberry gives us this feeling that things used to be better, which ain't necessarily so. Our readings today report that our memories are not accurate, but they're a coping mechanism for us to deal with our past. When we preferentially remember or create positive experiences that may or may not have happened, and maybe Mayberry was a collective memory of a simpler time. But it was a narrow, biased, colorless memory where non-whites were absent. BIPOC, black, indigenous people of color, they've got a different memory. So what does Mayberry have to do with First Parish? Well, first, as religious people, we need to dismiss and counter memories of the past where marginalized people are left out. Examples of misremembering that you will hear, that I have heard. This community was so comfortable before those people came in and changed everything. We need to return this country to the way it was founded, a Christian nation. Remember when new things didn't happen at this church? I liked it the way it was. You have heard or will hear all of those. But the second reason why Mayberry is relevant is that your memories can affect the future. I suggest that if we recognize how biased our memories are, we can realistically move forward in our life and in our church. If you drive your car by only looking in the rearview mirror, it's not going to end well. You're not going to go far. As you've heard, the Spirit of Life project is kicking off, officially starting today. But what is it? Well, if you're online congregation, read the email that went out last week. If you're here and don't know, check out the table with the cake, and you'll get some information about it. You'll talk to people there. And they came up with this great, where'd it go? This great graphic to kind of capture the 4 areas that we want to hear from you on. How are you flourishing as a congregation? What rings your bell? What brings you to this place and keeps you here? How do we need to grow as a congregation? What challenges do you face? Do you see us facing? And really important, what should we let go of? I request that you participate in this project, answer the questions, urge you not to look in the rearview mirror when you're answering these questions. I urge you not to rely upon your memory of what used to be here. Those 4 areas of investigation, current flourishing, growth, challenges, letting go, they'll be the topics of the questions and what we want to hear from you. Your answers will be listened to and noted. Your participation is critical. It's a moral thing like voting. If you want to be part of this place, give us your opinions. This is a covenantal in approach. This is not top-down. This is not some smart, self-proclaimed congregant saying, this is what we ought to do, and then telling you. This is bottom-up, and you need to participate. You need to give your opinions to it. You'll be planning your future together. I'll close with something one of my mentors told me regarding changes in churches. The last 7 words of a traditional conservative church: we've always done it this way. The last 7 words of a liberal progressive religion: we tried that once. It didn't work. Changes are coming. Don't be looking in the rearview mirror. Amen, and blessed be.